The puppet is one of the most popular characters in FNAF history. Being introduced in FNAF 2, this character made waves, scaring generations of FNAF fans, and made it even worse in FNAF VR when it was walking down the hallway. But for all we know about the vessel for Charlotte, Henry's daughter, we have just as many questions and theories, and those are what we're exploring today, whether they were disproven or still relevant. Greetings gamers and welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm Connor Monroe and this is the Top 10 Scary FNAF Puppet Theories. Let's do it. And at 10, Crying Child. The theory that started with the release of FNAF 4 was that the puppet was the Crying Child. The idea mostly came from the design of the puppet compared to the design of Crying Child's sprite, since the two had horizontal stripes and a love of crying. However, this ultimately was not the case, but it was still a solid idea when the theory first came around. Some of the evidence not only included their design but also positions, like how Crying Child would kneel while crying in the storage room, and the puppet's silhouette in FNAF 3's Mangle's Quest minigame. But like I said, it was confirmed to be Charlotte after we see her die in FNAF 6, and the puppet comes out to possess her, or I guess save her, resulting in one of the most delicate possessions in the series, which is weird to say the least. And at 9, after Phone Guy. There was also a common consensus that the puppet was actually after the Phone Guy. This whole idea came from a single line in FNAF 2 where Phone Guy says, "I never liked that puppet thing. It's always thinking." That combined with his love for Foxy actually made us believe that Purple Guy was going to be revealed as Phone Guy, which was at the time the closest thing we had gotten to getting an identity for the one everyone called Vincent for some damn reason. However, this was proven false in Sister Location. But that still leads us to think that, was the puppet actually after the Phone Guy? Because how else would he know that it's always thinking? It has to be some weird thing that happened to Phone Guy while he was on guard, right? It has to be, but what could it be? He doesn't look like William to our knowledge, and he doesn't really have any other connection. Or maybe there's something more sinister going on about the Phone Guy, something that we dismissed after he wasn't the Purple Guy. Is he the indie game dev, since he was voiced by Scott Cawthon? Or is he actually William Afton disguising himself as a guy talking to you on the phone? All interesting questions. And at 8, Nightmare. What's the deal with Nightmare? Or airplane food for that matter. Or some may call her Marionette. But seriously, why is this animatronic in the game if it isn't even considered canon? And if it's not canon, why do we end up seeing more of them in Ultimate Custom Night and FNAF VR? Plus, even if they were canon, they were an animatronic generated inside Crying Child's head. So how on earth were they able to put it in future games, specifically FNAF VR? I have an entirely separate video about that and how it could make sense, but Nightmare was deemed non-canon by Scott, so why are we seeing the character later on? That just seems absolutely bonkers and makes me think that Scott changed his mind. And if he did change his mind, maybe some things he said weren't canon are canon now and vice versa. So could this be why nothing makes sense anymore? Could things have just been changed out from under our noses? Probably, because Scott doesn't talk. And at 7, Lefty. Lefty is the robot that captures the puppet to bring them to the FNAF 6 location, but my question is, how did that robot work? Not in the sense of how did it lure away the puppet, I know it did that with the bracelet code, but the fact that emitting the bracelet code worked is what's really confusing. How did that work when Charlotte was the one possessing the animatronic? She was the one with the bracelet code, and according to her in Ultimate Custom Night, she's very aware. So how did she get tricked into protecting herself when she was already dead and aware of it? That just doesn't seem logical. And to go on that point, why didn't they just emit the bracelet code from the restaurant instead of making a whole new animatronic to capture her? Wouldn't it just have been easier to lure her in and then trap her inside the restaurant? You can just pour salt at the doors and spirits can't cross that. I just find that Lefty was it was just another excuse to make a Freddy variation, right? They had to up the numbers. They're we ain't meeting our Freddy quota today. We gotta bump it up. Lefty, there you go. Another bear. Has to be. And at 6, Missing Link. Some believe that the puppet is special, and she is. She seems to be the most sentient of all the animatronics, and she seemingly gave life to the others. However, that's not what I'm talking about. When I say special in this context, I mean they believe that the puppet has connections across realities, which sounds weird, but let me explain. Throughout FNAF 3, we see these clues, like cupcakes and secret codes and whatnot, that end up showing us how to get the good ending. These clues are actually something that you set up in FNAF World. Some think that the reason we were actually able to see those hints is because of the puppet, who can show up on a rare screen, even if it's potentially hallucination. More on that later. So could the puppet be the link between the worlds of FNAF? Can Charlotte peer beyond the veil and see into other games and maybe even other realities? Can she see the Fazbear Fanverse timeline? Can she see the Joy of Creation timeline? Can she see our world? Can she see a timeline where I don't talk about FNAF daily? Because I'd love to get a peek at that too, that's for sure. I don't know, it seems a little far-fetched, but I mean, hey, it could be plausible. Halfway through into number 5, spill it! The puppet must know a whole damn lot in this series. Like, Charlotte must have been onto William or something in order to get targeted like that. Especially when she was outside the restaurant and William was vulnerable because he wasn't wearing a spring-lock suit. It's certainly interesting to say the least. I firmly believe that the puppet knows William's true intentions or true motives. Maybe she found him with her mother, or maybe Charlotte herself was actually William's daughter. It's an interesting concept that I think should be explored further. Obviously, I can't really do a deep dive in this video, but there must be significance to this kill. I mean, you don't go out killing your business partner's little girl unless you got a reason, right? Just me? It just seems like a bad idea, and it was, considering how Henry then dedicates his life to destroying William and every act of cruelty that he caused. So, unless there was a very good reason, William is just a moron. And at 4, very aware. The others are like animals, but I am very aware. It's a line that can be said by the puppet after they kill you in Ultimate Custom Night, but the thing is, what does that really mean? I alluded to it earlier. Since, like we've seen in FNAF 6, they're still controlled by their animatronics programming. So how on earth is she aware, but also not aware enough to fall for the bracelet code trick? It's really just an issue of they haven't established what animatronics can and can't control in this series, yet the puppet seems to still stick out above the rest. It's weird and it brings up an excellent question, because like, what really controls these animatronics? From the sounds of the Fazbear Frights epilogues and stories, it's their agony that controls them, but based on the puppet, we could also assume that it's the coding, or the spirit, or a combination of multiple or all of these things, and it's damn confusing and frustrating. Like, we don't know what we don't know about this series. We think we know something, and then we look into it further to try to get evidence for something else, and then boom, turns out we know nothing. We're all Jon Snow when it comes to FNAF. Getting close to the end in at number 3, Lured. FNAF 3 was a game that really only involved one animatronic, Springtrap. The rest of the jump scares were just phantoms that wouldn't actually end the game. However, in a rare screen, which some consider a hallucination, we can see the puppet standing in the hallway of Fazbear Frights. While this may seem like a hallucination, I haven't heard of hallucinations having reflections in the floor. I mean, you may hallucinate reflections, like with mirages, but I haven't heard of someone hallucinating an object and its reflection. Plus, if this game was meant to be the capstone to the series, it would make sense for the puppet to show up, since at this point it hadn't been released yet either. So even if William hadn't survived the Fazbear Frights fire, the puppet would still be kicking around, unable to move on and unable to let this nightmare rest. But how did they lure the puppet to the FNAF 3 location is my question. Did they use the same wristband code trick, but it left when the fire started, and then that would explain Lefty's requirement, or is it just an oversight by Scott? Penultimately, and at number 2, start the fire. Another theory goes that since the puppet was at the FNAF 3 location, that they were the one who started the fire, which was honestly a fairly solid theory for a while. But with the reveal that Henry sets the building ablaze in FNAF 6, I feel like it's safe to assume that he also set the FNAF 3 fire, especially when the pronoun of he is used to describe the one who tried to release them, according to Orville Elephant in Ultimate Custom Night. Quote, "He tried to release you, he tried to release us, but I'm not going to let that happen. I will keep you here. I will hold you here, no matter how many times they burn us." The us, I'm guessing, is referring to William and the one possessing him, instead of the us being other animatronics. What do you think? Did the puppet start the FNAF 3 fire, or was it Henry doing what he should have done a long time ago before William was released? We didn't start the fire. It's been burning since the world's been turning. Finally, in at number 1, the first victim. I was the first. I have seen everything. That's a line from Chica in Ultimate Custom Night, which actually made us think that we were originally wrong, since we always assumed that the puppet was the first victim. It seemed more significant since it was his business partner's daughter and it was outside the pizzeria, but this line completely threw us off. until we realized that perhaps Chica was just referring to being the first of the missing children instead of the first victim of them all, since that would still let Chica be right and allow for the puppet to be killed before them, hence how they were able to teach them how to reanimate, as we see in the Give Gifts Give Life minigame from FNAF 2, which also explains why Golden Freddy is limp and has to teleport, since he never gets a mask put on in that game. So who do you think the first victim is, the puppet or Chica? Let me know and have a healthy debate down in the comments. I don't want to see anyone being mean. Healthy debate. There we have it, friends, the top 10 scary FNAF puppet theories. What are your favorite theories, and do you have any that I missed? Be sure you let me know down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been and shall remain Connor Monroe, and I'll see you in another video.